My name is Judith Borsboom. I will be one of the moderators of this session, but I will do this together with Francesco from the European Innovation Council. So we are the two of us.
Good morning to everybody. Here it is Francesco. Nice to see you, and I hope that these 45 minutes will be really practical and useful. We will try to make it live, so don't hesitate to make questions and interact with us. So we start with the first speaker, Judith, or do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because our session will be about the fertile soil that you need to set up local innovation ecosystems. And we know that there has been a report published in 2020 by the European Innovation Council, by the team of Fabienne and Gautier, and that made a lot of impact on many of the Smart City Lighthouse projects, because we know that a lot of cities recognize the challenges that were described there and also recognize the recommendations that were made there. So in this session, we will explore this a bit further with Fabienne Gautier. She will explain us a bit the background of the report and the thinking about the robust innovation systems. What does it need to bring them about? And after that, we will go into a panel discussion.
Yeah, I think that we all have to thank Judith, because she has been able to invite really good speakers and really represent the different part of the ecosystem. Pretty sure that you all know that European Commission is insisting on investing on cities. We have heard about it. There are many opportunities, but what is crucial is also to listen in this discussion really the different point of view on how to better exploit the new opportunities for the cities to really make the change, because there is the money, there are the ideas, but then to close the gap between implementation is really crucial. And today we are so ambitious to show some examples on how the path could go from the idea to the really uptake inside the cities of the innovation. So I'm happy to introduce and give the floor to Fabienne, our colleague, that here it's, I should know it by memory, but it's better if I read her full title. She is the acting head of Department I of Innovation Ecosystem, Entrepreneurship and Consumers inside EISMEA, European Innovation Council, Small Medium Enterprises Executive Agency. The floor is yours, Fabienne. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesco. Thank you, Judith. Dear participants, good afternoon, good morning. I'm very pleased to be here today with you and to attend the panel discussion on innovation ecosystems. And also I will start with giving you a bit of a background of how we prepared the report, which you have received in view of this session, and also how it unfolds in our policy-making process and implementation process under Horizon Europe. So where did it start? It started, of course, with the Horizon Europe program, in which for the first time under Pillar 3, which is dedicated to Innovative Europe, where we have for the first time a dedicated session on innovation ecosystems. It's a session which is complementary to the EIC, to the European Innovation Council program, and also to the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So a part of this program is dedicated to make the link between those two funding means under Horizon Europe, which are dedicated to innovation. There is a budget that was foreseen for this part, for innovation ecosystems, also for the first time, which is of about 500 million euro. Still linked to the legal base under Horizon Europe, where innovation ecosystems find their place, we have a description in the legal base in Horizon Europe of the different means that we will implement in order to foster more efficient innovation ecosystems in Europe. So we have a first part which is dedicated to policy, to policy supporting innovation ecosystems via policy. I will come back to it a bit later. And then some funding means in order to strengthen innovation ecosystems, in order to foster collaboration, in order to foster the connection between the different players. One very important element that you need to take into account or to keep in mind in relation to the program that we are implementing specifically for innovation ecosystems is the fact that for this program, for this dedicated section, we follow a bottom-up approach. We do not make any distinction between the different stakeholders that can implement the program, that can submit proposals for the program. We have a broad vision of the innovation ecosystem players, which range from universities, startups, SMEs, funding bodies, cities, regions, and other funding bodies at national or European level. So here a very broad definition of our innovation ecosystem players that we want to bring together, and also a bottom-up approach in the fact that we do not focus on any specific sector, any specific field. Here we aim at looking at all the different aspects, all the different sectors of innovation ecosystems in Europe. I believe this is very important for the implementation of the program and for bringing in the right actors in our implementation means. So, coming back to the report that Judith just mentioned and that we issued in 2020, why did we prepare this report? We wanted to, in order to assess the needs and the challenges of innovation ecosystem players in Europe, we decided to bring them together in order to prepare the future steps of implementing our framework program. We brought them together and asked them specifically what were the challenges, what were the needs. And we had very interesting results in terms of what are those big challenges that the innovation ecosystem players are facing. And there are three main big blocks of challenges that they are facing and which we try to address in our work program that is implementing the innovation ecosystems policy under Horizon Europe. The first one is linked to the connection among innovation ecosystem players. It is for many of them very difficult to go beyond their own local, regional limits, or even also beyond their own constituency, beyond their own group of stakeholders. So here the connections are key, and the means to facilitate, to improve these connections at European level was one of the main challenges that was highlighted. Another one was the need to get access to the right competencies, to the right talents in order to be able to innovate, in order also for the innovation ecosystem players like companies, startups, SMEs to grow, to get the right competencies and to be able also to innovate. So that was the second pillar. And the third one was, of course, access to capital, access to funding, which we foresee under Pillar 3 of Horizon Europe via the EIC, where we fund disruptive innovation and where we fund the innovators, and also some capital, some funding means that are foreseen also to support fostering innovation ecosystems at European level. And there are also other means, there are other challenges that innovation ecosystems are facing, which are linked, for instance, to the regulatory barriers that those players are facing, be it at a local, regional, national, and European level, and also how we can foster new means of doing innovation, of innovating at those various levels in Europe. So these were also some of the challenges which have been highlighted. Complementary to this report, which we have issued in 2020, there was a report that was issued last year in order to prepare the future strategy on innovation at the level of the Commission. And here, if you look at the outcomes of this report, I believe it's very important also to put it in correlation with what we had in our report of 2019. Here we see that clearly also other challenges have emerged and other challenges need to be addressed at European level. The first one is, for instance, that we have diverging priorities between cohesion and non-cohesion countries. So this, at European level, we need to tackle, and also at national level. There is a need for a direction for innovation and innovation ecosystems in relation to the societal needs and to the policy needs that we have at European level. We have seen it recently with the pandemic, how important it is also to be able to be reactive, to be flexible, and to react to some big challenges that emerged and that could not necessarily be foreseen. So this was also one element that was important. More transparent and inclusive policy-making process. overcoming the fragmentation of our innovation ecosystems at European level. We have many countries, many different types of ecosystems at European level, and those are fragmented, which is a strength, but which is also, to some extent, hindering innovation. And then also improving the regulatory framework for investments and for the reduction of those barriers at national level and at European level. So I invite you to have a look into this report that was issued on December last year, because it is very complementary to the one that we had in 2019, and which also can bring new ideas and also new means for reflection at your own level. So how did we translate the results of these reports and of our stakeholders consultation? This has been done in our work program implementing innovation ecosystems at European level. We have a policy part which is enshrined in the EIC forum that was formally launched last year, also at the occasion of the EIC summit. And the EIC forum is more to bring in, aims at bringing in the different innovation ecosystem players at high level in order to discuss, to reflect upon the issues that are hindering innovation players to grow at European level. So here it's more the policy support that is foreseen, where we will bring the different actors either to see how we can better facilitate the connections that were highlighted in the report, how we can better make use of existing instruments to innovate, or also think about new instruments that could be used by innovation ecosystem players, and how we can ensure an optimal connection between the innovation ecosystems at European level. And then we have the funding part under the work program on innovation ecosystems. We have a 2 years work program for which we have foreseen for 2021-2022 a budget of 130 million, divided into 3 main pillars. The first one is linked to the connection of innovation ecosystem players, again keeping in mind that we have a bottom-up approach, that we do not focus necessarily on specific actors, that we do not focus specifically on some sectors. We want here to connect, to give the means to connect among the innovation ecosystem players. Scale-up part is more dedicated to business, where we will, through the innovation ecosystems, be it at local, regional, national or European level, foster the connections among the innovation ecosystem players in order to support businesses, in order to support these businesses, these companies going beyond their own remits and going beyond their own ecosystems. So here, more focused on business, for which we have also some funding mean. And innovative SMEs, which is the program implemented by Eureka Network. Here, I will not go through this slide because it gives an overview of the goals and of the funding means for the work program 2021-2022. My slides will be available, so you can have a look into this summary of funding that is available for innovation ecosystems. But as I said, for the 2 first years of the implementation of the work program, we have a rough budget of 130 million euro that is dedicated to support to innovation ecosystem players and innovation ecosystems themselves. Here it is also a summary of the different types of actions that we implement under the work program 2021-2022. As I said, the pillar Connect foresees different actions. We have actions for which still calls need to be launched, and we have the dates which are on the slide, and those which have just closed because we launched our work program beginning of the year. So you can see under Connect how we aim at bringing in the different actors of innovation ecosystems in order for them to connect, to design joint strategies, to design joint programs, to design joint policies or joint implementation means. So here, one action on more inclusive networks and initiatives in innovation ecosystems, co-funded action plans to interconnect innovation ecosystems at European level. Again, here, those actors which need to interconnect can submit proposals in a bottom-up approach. We have the social innovation that is also an important aspect of innovation, not only tech innovation or deep tech innovation, but social innovation as well as public sector innovation that we want to foster. And there is a call also that has been launched in that respect, and also stimulation of innovation procurements, which have been, which are very powerful tools also for innovators and also for funding bodies in order to foster innovation in their countries. So here, actions that are foreseen. And on scale up, focusing more on business, here we will look into how we can foster entrepreneurship among innovation ecosystem players, how we can facilitate through the innovation ecosystem the investments, and also supporting some specific players, specific innovators at European level through, for instance, the Women Tech EU initiative, where we are here supporting early stage startups founded by women. So these are the actions that we implement under Innovation Ecosystem Work Programme for 2022. And we have also in parallel, and that will be my last slide before we move to the panel discussion, we have also, through the EIC, European Innovation Ecosystems Work Programme, we also have a number of activities that aim at stimulating innovation ecosystems in Europe in the form notably of prizes. So we have 4 prizes which we implement under the EIC, which is the iCapital Award, and I believe here this is specifically of interest to the cities which are present today. And we have the prize for women innovators. We have also, as I said before, social innovation competition that is implemented also this year under the EIC. And we have Innovation Procurement Award. It was launched for the first time last year, the Innovation Procurement Award. It's a fully new prize, and it also showed that we had a very high level of response, and there was a high interest in also this award. So here, elements also to foster, to bring in role models at European level that can inspire other innovators, be it cities, be it women founders of companies, be it also innovation agencies, be it also in universities, other types of players at European level. We want to foster also through these means innovation at European level. Then we also have, in order, still having in mind the connection among the innovation ecosystem players, we also support Startup Europe networks, in the sense that we have here the synergies that we want to build with between the Startup Europe networks. It is also indicated in Horizon Europe, where we want to facilitate, to bring in synergies between the EIC and the existing networks at European level. Other networks can also be funded at European level. It is foreseen in Horizon Europe. So here, an action that is also foreseen under the EIC, where we focus more on deep tech and digital startups. It's also the follow-up of an initiative that was implemented by DigiConnect previously. So these are the main actions that we implement under innovation ecosystems. We will move more to the discussion with our panelists today, but I hope that this gives you the context of how we set up this report and how it has been translated in concrete actions in order to support innovation ecosystems at European level. Many thanks for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion and also to your questions. Many thanks.
Many thanks, Fabienne, for your comprehensive overview, and also for inspiring us by sketching all the opportunities that will be coming up. So I would like this opportunity now to also introduce our panel. We invited these panelists because they represent different perspectives on the local innovation ecosystem. So we have a city. We have Ivo Hunink from the city of The Hague. The city of The Hague in the Netherlands is very active with a lot of pilots, a lot of experiments, and you're also working on uptaking the outcomes of those experiments into your own organization as a municipality. So that's really interesting, I think. We also have Magnus Agerström from CleanTech Scandinavia. He's director, and he's very experienced in linking startups, linking new businesses to investors. So you have a lot to share about that with us. And lastly, but not least, we have Nick Rendle here. And Nick Rendle is from Eurocities. He's project coordinator within Eurocities of the NetZeroCities platform. And we know a lot of things will happen happen there because the NetZeroCities platform is responsible for executing the mission of 100 climate neutral city contracts by 2030. So we're really happy to have you here all with all your different perspectives and to ask you a few questions. If time allows, we will also reserve a couple of minutes towards the end for giving you as an audience the opportunity to ask questions to our panelists as well.
So thank you, Judith. We start with Magnus. The first question, I mean, Magnus, I had a question, but I changed it after having seen Fabienne's presentation. So, I mean, the first thing is that we have seen that a lot of money is ready to be implemented also because one of the three challenges that Fabienne showed us coming out of the report is the capital. So the public and private contamination somehow and help. So my question has become for you, which is, Magnus, for you, the advice you give to the city managers in terms of how to initiate a process for setting up, I mean, an ecosystem that is able to attract the money. So how can a city work from your experience in order to attract the money coming from private investors? I mean, we all know that is needed, once again, to be attractive in terms of city, but also to have the right talent, okay, the talented people. So people and cities are two parts of this multifaceted legs table, but my question to you is, which is, in your opinion, other aspect that the city manager or mayor has to put in place in order to attract the capital from private investors?
Yes, I choose to answer that in two levels. First, we have if you look at the innovation that comes out of a local ecosystem, there's plenty of investors for that. There's angel investors, there's VCs, corporate VCs, and we meet them all the time in our work. And what a city manager should do is to make their city interesting in that way, mainly by trying to pool as many interesting innovations as possible in one place to make it easy for an investor to actually come and visit and see what it's all about. So provide that setup for we see some cities around the world that are exceptionally good at it. Boston, for example, in the US, they're very, very good. And most big investments today, they go to companies that actually originated in Boston because they have been able to pull that together in a good way. So that's one part of it. The other part, this is more related to cities, I guess, is that we have concluded that there is a funding gap between what cities are planning to invest to become climate neutral and what would be needed to invest. And everyone is talking about that has to come from private sources. That's sort of the discussion that is going. Very few cities talk to private investors. We have done research in Sweden, which basically the first instinct from a city is, well, we have money. We can take a loan from from everywhere to do whatever we want. But at the same time, they understand that the next step to actually become climate neutral, well, probably not enough to just take another loan, right? You probably need more, if not so much for the money, you will probably need it because you don't want to have loan financed activities only. You want to create new business models, right? Because this is something that needs to be ongoing. So you need to figure out that. So I think pick up the phone, call pension funds, call infrastructure investors, call banks. They are interested. We have interviewed them as well, and they are interested. They're ready. But pick up the phone. That's number one.
Thank you very much, Magnus. This afternoon, there will be one of the guys that may give the mobile phone because there will be one pension and investment fund for cities. So we will have the time to discuss. And so just to sum up, Magnus, you see, on the first side, we need to promote, the city managers need to be somehow promoters of this. So territorial marketing is crucial. And the second one is that investors are not so far from you. And as usually said, there is more money than ideas. So they are happy to discuss how to make the things happen. Am I right?
I wouldn't say that there's more money than there are ideas. Not if I look at climate tech, which is urgently needed. Not all good innovation gets funding, so there's still a need for more money to go in.
And you think that cities, I don't know if it is Hague or in other cities, as Judith was telling me, some cities are proposing themselves as being a pilot. Okay, you can come to my city to test your technology to make it visible to the other part of the world. Do you consider this kind of approach useful?
It is for sure, but we need to, I mean, it said here scale up and so on. It's becoming almost tiring because pilots we can do, we have done, we have proved it, right? Lots of EU money going into pilots, but we have not proved how to scale it up, and it's starting to be a problem. So, but keep on piloting because we need to see it in live, and of course it's a way to market the city as well if you're good to absorb new innovation. And don't be afraid to bring in innovation from other countries or other cities to your city to test it. Most of the time we see that cities, they test things that has been invented around the corner. So why don't you open up a little bit more?
Thank you, Magnus. I give the floor to Judith to discuss also about this last thing that Magnus said. I see, Judith, a lot of risk aversion from the cities, you know.
Yeah, that's one of the things we hear a lot, that it might be difficult for cities to invest in new technologies or things that might be a bit experimental. Therefore, I would like to go to Ivo. You in the city of The Hague, I know you're working in Living Lab Scheveningen, for example. For instance, you're testing a lot of new technologies, you're testing a lot of new solutions, you also engage your citizens in that process. Could you explain to us here a bit more about the challenges the city is meeting during this process, and what would be needed, in your opinion, to overcome such challenges?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a lot of challenges, more than I can discuss in the short time we have, but also connecting it to the story of Magnus, where indeed a lot of pilots fail, or after the pilot phase they stop. And I think we cracked a part of the code there, and that is to, before the pilot phase, focus a lot on that innovation ecosystem. Yeah. You know, people tend to, after the prototyping phase, to jump into a pilot and start testing. But you need to take a bit of a slower step there and first validate if the prototype that you created is actually a good fit for your ecosystem. Not just the person that's paying for it, but also all the other people in the ecosystem. And there's one good example we have of that, which is not energy related, but it involved sound sensors that we deployed. And we went in it, the province paid for the first pilot. It was a successful pilot. Everybody said, hey, we have good results. And then in the end, no one picked it up because apparently sound was not a clear defined objective for a certain department. There was like 3 departments pointing at each other. No, you have to take it up. You know, so if you don't think about who's going to take it up before you do the pilot, yeah, you end up with nothing. So that's just a small part of the things we try to do in a more structured innovation process, let's say.
So how would that work out in practice? For example, with this particular pilot, so your recommendation is to think in advance about who is going to use the innovation, who needs to be responsible for it. So it also links to how governance is organized. It links to mandates, roles, responsibilities. But what would you recommend to other cities for doing this in the right way?
Well, what we did after observing that for the next pilot, which was a pilot with crowd detection through cameras in a privacy-friendly way, is to, after the prototyping phase, we also did a hackathon, we chose the winner, and instead of just putting it out in the field, we did a ecosystem validation lab. And there we took really 12 weeks of 2 days a week, intensive, back to the drawing board, literally mapping out the ecosystem, drawing all the lines, like what value does this specific stakeholder bring, who could be maybe a stakeholder that will try to counteract our developments. And just drawing out that ecosystem and showing it to the stakeholders made them realize how complex it was. And they started actually helping us. We needed to involve the police at a certain point, and they saw this image. They were like, "Whoa, this is really complex. You need our help," you know. So it started to become this momentum around which we built this pilot, which is now being scaled up. So the pilot was successful. I wouldn't say we didn't have any other challenges getting it through, but right now we went into the next phase, and many of those. Yeah, those pointing fingers, you have to take it up, we already tackled before the pilot, and that was clear.
Okay, very clear. And also I think a very clear link to what Magnus said about upscaling and providing the right preconditions for that upfront. So, Francesco, now it's your turn to ask a question.
I go to Nick. And I mean, Nick, as I told you before, on your shoulders there is a strong lift. You have to take care of implementing, okay, the platform to make, the technology or the know-how owner friendly with the know-how users. And we were discussing before, the users are the cities, okay? But we have seen from Fabienne that obviously there are different ecosystem actors speaking different languages. So my question to you is, how do you think now that you are designing this platform for the mission cities to make it work? From the experience you have seen, what are, the key points on which you are working to make this platform, work in the near future?
It's a very broad question in a sense about the design of the platform, and I think we could take the rest of the session just talking about the kind of detail of platform design. But I think for me, perhaps some of those key principles are the things that have been articulated already here by Fabienne and by Ivo, in a sense of the platform is very consciously structured around the idea of moving to a place of systematic innovation, and how that differs from a kind of rationale of sort of localized intervention or looking at a technical solution in isolation. So very much the focus of what we're trying to achieve is linking together expertise on kind of technical matters with financial innovation, with governance innovation, with social innovation, and seeing that we find a way to kind of create a common language across those different fields within the NetZeroCities consortium as a starting point is actually, a very significant day-to-day challenge for us, because we are bringing together already 33 organizations, city networks, research institutions, different places, and so developing that commonality of language is like a very key day-to-day issue for us. But in the way that we turn that on its head, of course, that's the way that we can frame the offer that we bring out to cities when the thing launches. We have a kind of partial launch in June and then a full launch in September, and part of that will be about showing how those kind of interconnections work through, and so the mission cities that will be announced this week, their task will be around defining a climate city contract, which is consciously about kind of how do these different elements come together in mapping a system. And I found it was really interesting to hear what you were saying in the kind of development of a ecosystem map in The Hague, because one of the things we've been talking about as a kind of what happens when those cities start that process is exactly that. We've just been talking in the last kind of month about how can we kind of start that journey with cities. We're saying, right, okay, you're signing up to make this ambitious commitment to decarbonize by 2030 and to kind of do all these buzzwords, but actually maybe one of the first things is around sitting and trying to work in a way to map out that ecosystem and do it in a way that kind of moves this rapidly beyond being a climate strategy policy officer and an officer in the mayor's governance team sitting together and doing something that is dynamic and pulling in staff across the administration, and then immediately going wider and saying, well, you know, how do we look at our stakeholder relationships that are outside of the administration, through the universities, through everybody that you mentioned in the first place here. And I think, you know, obviously there are multiple routes in, but as has been said here, you know, if we don't start with that idea of creating the local map of the ecosystem and trying to work out how those players kind of come together, then we're totally condemned to working in silos and to the kind of repeat of a, you know, nice island of a pilot project, basically.
So a take-home message, Nick, from what you said, I mean, can be that concerning what we were speaking about, the Hague, the job in advance from your September presentation from the cities could be really to map their ecosystem, to understand. And the other side, am I right when I think that the cities will also have to have people acknowledged at a certain point how to work with your platform? You will explain on September, but if a city manager has to start thinking on how to prepare his team to be ready to use your platform, which are the advices you would give them?
Oh, well, this is why I said to Judith, can I do a beautiful slideshow? And she said, no, we haven't got time, right? But, you know, okay, in principle, we're defining a set of human services and digital services. Right, so we have some human support staff starting this week, actually. The first of them support our climate neutral city advisors, who are there to kind of guide, shape, help. But through our online offer, and the space, I suppose, where many people here would potentially be finding their way into kind of relating with what we're doing is on what the online portal will be, and that has a bunch of different components to it. So it's, in very simple terms, there's a knowledge repository, there's a data reporting function, and there's kind of, you know, interactive tools, I suppose, potentially. That's where some of the smart cities marketplace matching kind of maybe is where we integrate. But I think the key answer for that, in a way, is that we, I'm waffling, I'm going to come back to your question, but the bit that I think there's an interest and importance to hear is the idea of kind of collaboration spaces within that. So we'll look at defining something that looks somewhat like a kind of social network of a LinkedIn, Facebook kind of environment that's a very open, reflecting your point, Fabienne, of a kind of you know, sort of flat and unboundaried kind of ecosystem that just has a lot of kind of conversational stuff going. We've closed kind of clustered working groups that have the detailed work taking place in them for cities. And to come straight back to your point of the opening question, I think, you know, we're conscious that that's a very heavy burden of sort of stuff, or there's a big ask for like your average city official who's going to do one part of one project to try and get into that. So we are defining in a kind of onboarding module that is about introducing the city, pointing pre kind of content to them. So all the 370-ish applicants to the mission did a very detailed expression of interest, right? So one of the things that we're looking to do is to take some of the information from that to kind of pre-populate a set of tags that you know, have kind of core relevance to the city in its context, in the kind of issues and potential solutions and co-benefits for them, for example, that would then be their arrival point, right? So when someone joins from The Hague onto the platform, they're already saying, right, we know something about your city. This is the kind of tagging structure it's been populated with. Maybe you answer a few more questions and we refine that for you as an individual in the administration, but then that prompts them to kind of key bits of content and key conversations in the portal.
So just to sum up, I mean, a city should really start looking at a multidisciplinary group where people are able to give content to your platform that can easily, I mean, be picked up by knowledge, I mean, owner that can say, okay, I go to call The Hague because I know that they might be interested in this topic because they showed me that they would love to do this. Is it reasonable?
Yes, but I think we have to give them incentive to do so. We can say they should do that, but unless we create a structure that's like easy to use and valid and powerful, it is only going to be the climate policy people, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask a question to Fabienne. In the 2020 report, there was an observation that there's a lack of innovation capabilities within public stakeholders. You showed us that there are a lot of things going on, a lot of actions trying to improve that. So could you highlight a bit how you are dealing with that and which actions are out there? And please be a bit compact in your answer, because it would be good to have 1 or 2 minutes left for the audience.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. The lack of we have a lack of innovation at some places, and indeed for some public actions. And this is in our program that we put in place. This is enshrined in the actions that go beyond technological innovation. As I said, we are addressing through our program not only technological innovation, we are also addressing social innovation and fostering public sector innovation. And I believe this is also extremely important for cities, for regions, and also for public players, given that they are those which need to address the challenges that directly impact the citizens or the economies, for instance. And if you look at the city, it's where the impact, where the citizens and the economies can feel this impact, and this is also where the means are in order to address those challenges and address it at local level, because innovation basically happens locally and in the cities. So here you need to bring in the different players that can address these challenges. And it is not only technological innovation, but you can also get from the different views. We had the very good example also given before, where you had the police, which has been brought in order also to reflect and to help finding a solution to a specific challenge. So here, I believe also this overview can be done at the level of the cities, at the level of the public authorities, which design and then implement the policies, and also bring in the funding means in order to implement the policies. And this can be done in bringing in, and this is linked to the connection that we want to put in, and this where we aim at addressing all the players that would need to be brought in in order to address a challenge. And here we can have those different views coming from different sectors, involving also the citizens, which can have great ideas, different social sectors as well. So where the players that can help finding a solution are brought together. And I believe here that, we believe also at the level of our program, that this can be done, for instance, in the cities, in the regions, and then you can go beyond your own remits in order to reach out to funding, to private investors, for instance. So you can go beyond your own ecosystem, but working at the level of the innovation ecosystem locally and bringing in the right actor is key, I believe, and not only focusing on one type of innovation. And if we have a public sector innovating, it can be, for instance, in the use of some tools in order to innovation, public innovation, innovative procurements and so on. So these are the means that the cities or that also public players can put in place.
Thank you. I see that Marinda is looking very strict at me. So
yeah, no.
And I think that probably that means that we won't have any time left for questions from the audience.
Let's do one or two if there are questions, because we love questions from you and from you at home as well. So
okay,
yeah,
good. So, is there someone who wants to ask a question to our valued panelists?
Oh, yeah, if you give me a microphone, I can be your runner. Yeah, thanks. This is a blue one, the number 3. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrei Bozato. I'm a Brussels office representative of the Northeast Romania Regional Development Agency. Very quickly, I would like to add something to what Magnus said about Boston. In regards of another example from the United States, which is the city of Austin. They, they did an amazing job with the Silicon Hills. It's a successful story based on a strong participation of the private sector, support to startups, and by attracting investments. But I will go directly to my questions. I have 2 questions. In my region, which is the northeast part of Romania, there are a couple of bigger cities interested to develop a local innovation ecosystem. Do you consider that a permanent, let's say, fund trust or investment fund or a similar, let's say, structure combining both public and private sector at local level to finance and support startups and innovation would be a good idea?
Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it a good idea? Yes. They're nodding.
I would say yes. It's a good idea indeed to bring in the different sources of investment. That's precisely what we are doing via the European Innovation Council, where we try to support innovators via different ways of funding those innovative companies. You know certainly the grants that we can allocate at European level, but through the EIC. We are also looking to equity funding, and this first step that the EIC is doing in investing in some companies is also attracting other investors, not only at public sector level but also at private level. Because if we want to invest in companies, it cannot only come from the public sector, but it also needs to come from the private sector. So this is very important to bring in those two different means of funding and to foster it at European level and also at national level.
Thank you, Fabienne. I think Magnus wants to have a very brief reaction to that. I saw you grabbing the microphone.
Of course, this is a good idea. What I think you should do is to see what public finances you can get, national or from the city first. And there's going to be quite a lot of private investors that would like to join up, but since it will likely be very early stages for these companies, it's very important that you have the public side involved as well. Otherwise, they won't invest. They need their money back. That's the problem with private investors.
Let's take one more question from the online audience, really quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is it really a lack of innovation after a decade of smart cities, or has the innovation level mostly matured to its optimal point for the circumstances and landscape? Aren't we expecting too much of city administrators and budgets?
Nice question.
I can say something about that as well, because we have checked it a little bit. We made a study of avoided emissions on technologies that are already there, so to speak. And if we take that and we match it with the needs that we have in terms of to go to net zero, we are there in a way. Of course, we need to continue to innovate because there's going to be better technologies, but looking at what we have already, it's already there. So the problem is not so much innovation as it is other things.
Can I ask to Ivo also and to Nick, a short answer, because you are the user.
Yeah, the idea I have that behind this question, it means technological innovation. And I think Magnus is right, like the technological innovation is not necessarily the limiting factor anymore. But what I see in our work is that it's innovation in governance models, innovation in new kinds of policies, new kinds of regulations. That is what we are learning right now around these new technologies. Just to drop in a buzzword, blockchain technology requires a completely different governance system for a government, which we are definitely not accustomed to yet. So we need to change that still.
Thank you very much. Nick, do you want, I said you were...
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much echoing the comment we've just heard. I mean, I think, the technological innovation is not the key thing, but the need to find transformative systems to fend off, climate chaos is with business as usual will fail and destroy us all. So absolutely, we need to find transformative ways to innovate in the ways you've said at governance and societal level.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists. I think that it was, from my side, a very learning session. I took a lot of note. And thanks to everybody to listening. Just to conclude, I would say that what is the take-home message that I bring back to my program manager office, I will discuss with my colleague Antonio Marco Pantaleo, is that I think that from the public point of view, so from Fabienne, from us, I think that what is important is really to facilitate cities, in getting exactly this new way of governing and developing, policies, and looking also at the best practices. So I really think that what Nick will have to do is also the capability through this platform to share the best practices on the policy side. On our side, on the technology side, once again, I think that I changed my life for the first time coming inside European Commission after having worked in different places. And I think that now European Commission can be really the initiator of these synergies with the private funding. What we have heard from Magnus is that private funding needs technology and needs to see that they work. And on this side, European Commission money can really push for the final market uptake or scale up, we can call whatever we want, but the fund synergies between public and private is really crucial, and from the city's point of view, they need to have the right people able to pick up the phone and speak with the money. And because here, if we are able to have the right people, the talented people, also in the city administration, then I think we can really make the 100 neutral city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, anything else to say?
Yeah, a big hand for a fantastic panel, and then over to you, Marinda.
Thank you to the panel and to you moderators. Well done.